It's Corso and Catone.
Listen, Mark, hold on. When I say, would you have caffeine today?
What the hell is that up to?
Presented by Special Sauce Podcast, Studio 42 Design, and Corso Law Group. Now for the real deal New England feel, Corso and Catone.
Welcome into Corso and Catone, the real deal New England feel. I'm Corso. Catone is here. Joe is with us in the booth, and you're watching us on YouTube, listening on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you podcast. You can catch us and listen. Call us. Heated Hotline, 855-313-PATS. Give us a call 24/7. Leave a message. Anything's on the table. Joe tells me we have a good one today. And also in our mailbag, corso.catone@gmail.com. Put your thoughts onto paper. Get them in so Mark can read. Mark just learned how to, put sentences together and things like that.
Hey,
so now he can,
never too late to learn something new, Chris.
Well,
never too late.
Last week you were buying Crayola crayons, and now he's learned how to use
He's
those.
never going to let me live that down, Joe.
Oh, I went and researched it. It was great to learn about Crayola crayons. And they went out at 64. They had the 64 with the pencil sharpener or the Crayola sharpener.
The pencil sharpener. See?
There you go. So send us an email, corso.catone. We're going off the rails already. We're a minute in. corso.catone@gmail.com. And listen, we've got a good one today. We're going to hear from one of you in the nation in Heated Hotline. And, of course, Catone's comments. You never want to miss that. We're going to talk some Yankees versus Red Sox. Something interesting happened in golf today, too, Mark. If we have time at the end, we can throw that into the mix. But, hey, management sucks. Management sucks. This is the theme today. You're all out there going to realize what we're talking about and know what we're talking about. But before that, let's hear from one of you in Heated Hotline. Joe, we ready?
Hey, Corso and Catone. You guys are smoking something if you think the Pats are going to lose every game in the division. What the hell do you know anyway? Love the show.
Wow.
Okay. Joe said we had a good one today. Not even a name. Not even a name or where you're from.
I love those. He's
just disgusted with us.
But he loves the show. That's the best part. I love the show at the end.
Yeah, I like it.
Loves being disgusted with us, Mark. Loves being disgusted with us. So, okay. Well, listen, unknown caller out there. Thank you. Thank you for the call. Hey, we could take beatings. So let's
just for the record. Wait a minute. Just for the record, he wasn't beating me up. He was beating you up. I said we were going to beat the Jets. So he's talking about you, Corso.
All right. Then let's try to justify. Listen, look, you know what? I didn't hear that before. So, Mark and I listen, when you people call in, it's off guard. Joe doesn't allow us to listen to these calls ahead of time. He wants the spontaneity of it, right? And so Mark, write that word out.
New word.
Well, I gotta look that. I gotta look.
Shopping your Crayola, Mark.
Listen, I'm not gonna live that Crayola box down.
Okay, listen. Thank you for the call. Yeah, this is now the second time we've heard this about my division picks and about the picks up to the break. And so, Mark, let's try to justify it. First of all, okay, yeah, I had them 0-6 in the division. You had them 1-5. So I mean, that's pretty close. What am I missing something?
Well, okay.
Talking about the Patriots now, everybody.
Okay, so Joe, Chris, let's go team by team. Okay, so we'll start with for the sake of
you're going to put me on the spot now, aren't you?
Yeah, let's start with Buffalo only because Buffalo is one. Even though we think they're going to take a step back, just because Buffalo's won a division the last few years, let's start with Buffalo. Okay, so let's talk about that matchup. Do we honestly think they haven't beaten Buffalo in 3 years? Do we honestly think they're going to win a game against Buffalo? Caller, do you honestly think, Caller, they're going to win a game against Buffalo? Come on, really?
But Mark, you know what? You don't want to know something. This is the difference. And you know why he's calling the show? Because he knows we're going to give him the answer. The real answer. Don't you hate when you call these shows or you listen to these shows and they're just like, you're crazy. You're never going to beat them. They haven't beaten them. Blah, blah, blah. And they don't tell you why.
We're going to tell you why.
offensively, Mark, you know, what do we got for Buffalo offensively to keep up with them? It's the same issue, isn't it? All the time.
Unless Juju Smith-Schuster is something, I mean, more than what we think, Chris. Yes, we both agree he's an upgrade. However, he didn't pop and put up all pro stats with Mahomes. He's going to put up all pro stats with Mac Jones all of a sudden?
Yeah. No way.
You know, and what do we got? Gesicki?
No, you don't have enough. You have to keep up with them, don't you?
Gesicki makes a difference? That much of a difference, Chris?
No, not to me. And so then it flips to the other side of the ball now, right? Because it becomes less of an issue about, okay, what do we have on offense? Well, we know we don't have much on offense. You know, it's flat out, it's there. You're not going to, can't.
The offense, Chris, we both agree will be better just because it's not going to be as dysfunctional with Bill O'Brien, right? There should be some semblance of order, some semblance of discipline, a game plan, a consistent scheme, right? We do agree with that. So yes, in that sense, the offense will be better. However, it's still a matter of the talent you have at the positions.
Against a team like Buffalo, okay, here's the problem. Against a team like Buffalo, your defense has got we're not in a situation anymore where Brady was here, where the offense could make the defense better. All right, where the offense could put points on the board. You had to score 30 to beat that team, to beat the Patriots team with Brady there. He made other players better. Before you knew it, you were down 14 points, and you just basically shrunk your playbook. You got rid of the running game, and it allowed your defense to be better. Now it's flipped. So now our defense is going to try to make our offense better, which means you got to keep Allen off the field. You got to keep Buffalo from scoring points. And here, and if I may, Mark, the reason why we can't, okay, is once again, the issues in the center of the field. Did they get better at corner? It seems like they did. Do they have a good front push, pass rush? It seems like they do. But excuse me. But the problem, Mark, is when you have the issues in the center of the field with like they do at linebacker and they didn't address it at all, there's things you need to worry about. You say, okay, well, how do we mask that situation? Well, can we get into zone against Buffalo? You know, can we play zone? Okay, you're going to have to play zone. See, what you wanted, you can't play man against Buffalo, not just because of Diggs, because if Gonzalez is built the way he's supposed to be, I think we can do things to take away Diggs, okay, with coverage. And I think you can match up with Buffalo's weapons man on man. The problem is the center of our field is so bad. We have no lateral linebackers that can go sideline to sideline, and we have nobody that can spy and stay with Allen. That's the problem. If you go man against Buffalo's offense, Allen will run for 100 yards in that game because he's just going to take off. When you're playing man-to-man, your back is to the quarterback. That's what happens. Your back is to the quarterback. So you need middle linebackers. You need off-ball guys that can run with him, that can close those gaps, to keep him basically in the pocket. You don't have
not that. Juwan Bentley? Not Bentley?
Yeah. Bentley and Tavia are going to do a great job at that. So you have to play zone. Now, the problem with playing zone is what? Now you have to get into throwing lanes. So now you have Allen sitting there, guys running across the field, and you have to have your linebackers be able to shift into those throwing lanes, plug those up. They can't do that either. So you're going to see a lot of zone against Buffalo, okay? And they have the weapons to be able to pick you apart, not to mention they got Harris now. So that's the reason. And so your defense is not going to allow your offense to succeed. That is the deficiency. So we got better on defense, Mark, but we still have key spots that aren't good. And that's the problem.
And Chris, the elephant in the room,
yeah,
it doesn't look like they're going to get him. But God forbid Hopkins drops into Buffalo's lap. Then forget it. All bets are off. Forget it.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't, it kind of looks like they're out of it now.
It does look like they're out of it.
We'll talk about that in a second, but that's the problem with Buffalo. That's why you can't beat Buffalo. Okay. So that's one.
How about Miami?
Moving on. So
Miami.
Miami. Yeah, Miami. Miami's just now. Miami's a team where you don't want to play. You don't really want to play man against that team. Okay, you don't want to play man. You have the defensive backs. You think you're better at that, but when you got Waddle, when you got Hill, when you got who's the other guy they got now? Anderson.
They picked up Robbie Anderson.
And then
they picked up Chris, and they picked
Wilson
up that kid
still
Berrios in the slot from the Jets, who's
Yeah.
not a stud receiver, but he'll sit in a slot area in the center of the field, your weakness, Chris. And with those guys on the outside, he'll catch balls for you.
Yeah. So the problem there is you can't really play man coverage unless you're disguising the man and you're playing one over the top and double up on Hill so he can't get those long crossing routes downfield. Okay, and you hope that your pass rush is good enough where if you can clog up that middle and you can get Hill going across and pick him up and kind of trade him down, meaning you got a defensive back going with him, then he trades off to the safety who trades off to by that time the pass rush gets home. But that's only for one guy. You got Waddle sitting there, you got Anderson sitting there, and then you got the kid underneath with Berrios. So you're kind of forced to play zone in that situation, right? And you also have Tua that can run the ball too. So if you play a little man, you have to worry about him getting out. And so it's the same problem. It's the middle linebacker.
I read an article.
Good.
I read an article today, Chris, that they seem to be negotiating with Minnesota to get Dalvin Cook. If they get him, forget it. How are you beating them?
And Cook can catch balls out of the backfield.
Yes.
So that's the problem with the team like that. So now you again, your middle linebackers are exposed because you can't pass off guys. You can't pass off receivers going across the middle of the field. You're not athletic enough to do it. And then you sit in zone and you try to do your best there. But again, you're not helping your offense.
Now,
and that
what about
defense
us
is better.
Against them?
Well, you tell me. I mean, that defense is. Tell me about those defensive backs over there.
Well, they get Xavier Howard, who was an All-Pro before he was injured last year. You have him, and then you go and pick up who did they pick? They picked up the guy from
Ramsey.
The Rams, Ramsey. So now you got Ramsey on the other side, Chris. What do you? And then you got the linebackers. They had a couple of linebackers who were good, who are hurt. They're healthy. So, like, if they're healthy, Chris, defensively, what we have in the receiver room that's beating those two corners?
No, because you can lock down. You have a defense over there now that can play straight man coverage against your outside people, which are basically Parker and Thornton. So you can, don't please. We only have 20 minutes. So, you know what I'm saying? So you have guys that can play man coverage, which now you can send people after Mac Jones. Not to mention the fact that our tackles, how's Riley Reef going to be? How's Sal going to be?
Let me tell you something. Those guys those are big rolls of the dice with those guys, Chris. You're hoping they can be big contributors, because if they're not, you have a major problem on the offensive line.
So if you think offensively, you're just going to play keep away from everybody this season?
Well, what's Stevenson going to rush for 200 yards every game?
He's the only person you got to defend on that. If I'm a DC and I'm going to sleep at night and I put my head on the pillow, there's really nobody on the Patriots I'm losing sleep over. Stevenson would be the only guy.
Is it Gesicki? Ty Montgomery.
Right.
Out of the backfield, Chris.
Again, Stevenson's really the only guy I have some concern about. So, I mean, and this is all things being equal what it is today, Mark.
Chris, let me ask you
that's
a question.
Miami.
Can you beat so you don't even think at home we can beat them? Never mind down there.
No, unless they have injuries, unless Tua goes down again. They wouldn't have beat them last year if Tua wasn't hurt. I mean, look, I get it. The offense is going to be better, but your defense is lacking in a specific key spot. You know what I mean?
And that's going to hurt us in our division, right?
It's going to hurt us in our division all across the board, and it's going to hurt us with the Jets too. So,
okay, you bring up the Jets. Let's talk about the Jets.
Well, the Jets are a situation where you have a quarterback over there that you're facing your first immobile quarterback. Okay, so Aaron Rodgers, he can move. He's mobile in the pocket to get himself free, like Brady used to. But he's certainly not Tua, and he's not Allen. So the problem there is you have probably the best deep thrower in the game. Okay.
And you got a kid that can you got the kid Wilson that'll go deep. And he brought in his buddy from was it Lazar from Green Bay too?
Yeah, and Hodman from
M.
Kansas
Hodman
City.
from Kansas City.
So if you're going to try to lock up man
And they
to
got a
man-
couple of good tight ends on that team, too.
Right. And so the problem there is that's a game you want to play man. That's a game you want to play man because if you play zone against Aaron Rodgers with the type of linebackers that we have in the middle of the field, zone's fine when linebackers in the middle can get into the throwing lanes, can plug up those or give a fool's gold to a quarterback that believes I have a throwing lane, and then all of a sudden your middle linebacker off-ball guy is good enough to get into that and clog that, and that's where you see those interceptions by linebackers, happening. We don't have that. This guy will pick us apart in a zone. Aaron Rodgers, he's too good to do that. So now you play man. Well, now roll that dice and see if you could cover those guys downfield on those beautiful deep throws that he makes and engaged Aaron Rodgers. That's the problem there. Can they be had offensively? Maybe. What, us on offense?
That's what I mean. What about the okay? So they got Sauce Gardner, but do they really have? Can we move the ball on them?
I mean, you hope they can. You hope they can. You hope they can run some bubbles. You hope they can run some lateral stuff, and we'll see what kind of running game they have. But again, that's the issue against the Jets. You see the theme. You know what I'm saying? Caller, and who's left?
So Chris, wait a minute though now. So the Jets, here's the thing though. So now the Jets we get is it 3?
3.
Yes, week 3. So my thinking in picking New England,
in New York. Yeah.
In New York in week 3 was it might take Rodgers a couple of games to get rolling, and perhaps Belichick could come up with a way to play ball control and win a 2017 game in New York, maybe. But if Rodgers comes out of the gate blasting, then you're probably going to be right, Chris. There's a good chance they go 0-6 in the division, unless the last game against the Jets is meaningless and they don't play Rodgers and they don't play anybody because playoff seeding is decided. Maybe you win one by accident, and you go 1-5 in the division. But listen, caller, you're only doing that if the Jets have everything locked up and seeding is locked up. Maybe they're not playing guys in that last game against the Jets, and maybe you can win it. But do you really consider that a win?
Or,
I mean, okay,
or flip it, Mark, or they're out of contention and Aaron Rodgers checks out.
Yes.
See, that's why I think you have a better chance of winning that game than you do week 3, because in week 3, of course he's going to be engaged in week 3. Who the hell's not engaged in week 3? When it's all roses, So we'll see what happens. That's the reason why I have them going 0-6 in the division.
And Chris, who knows? By week 6, the last week when we play them, if things don't go well for us, Zappy could be the quarterback.
And
who knows what that looks like? We could be a dumpster fire by then, Chris. You never know.
No, you don't. And so things can change if you have somebody that you have to prepare for. So Hopkins, in the minute we have left. So Hopkins, Mark, he's meeting with Tennessee Titans next week. You said the realistic teams are, Dallas is, go ahead. Who do you think?
So I thought, Chris, the realistic teams, were, originally I thought perhaps Dallas, but it appears Dallas is out of the running now. They're happy with what they have in that receiver room. They got Cooks. So I thought Cleveland, because I really think Deshaun Watson is pushing management to bring him in. Obviously, Tennessee is coming into play a little bit. And you and I even talked about, Chris, don't rule out the Texans because they got a ton of money under the cap. Don't rule them out. Right. Listen, why would he come here, Chris? He had the falling out with O'Brien. No matter what, even though Belichick's the coach, he's going to want to come play with O'Brien when O'Brien's the OC, number one. Number two, do we honestly think, stop fooling ourselves, do we honestly think Kraft is going to pay real money, real wide receiver money to bring him in here? Even though we have the cap space, I just don't see it, Chris. I think it's again, Belichick, having his minions in the press. Yep, New England's in the running, throwing that out there to deflect the heat from him. They're not anywhere near serious contention to get Hopkins. Please don't fool yourself.
He wants Odell Beckham money, so he wants that 1 year, $15 million. But
don't forget what that contract
really is. That contract's a year, $15 million, with about 3 or 4 dummy years behind it. So they can hide the money. So listen, that's why I say don't discount the Chiefs in this whole thing.
If the Chiefs can figure out a contract like that, Chris, yes. And if the Chiefs get Hopkins, they're repeating.
And there's no chance the Patriots are going to pay this guy that kind of money. They won't do it. So get it out of your head, too. So, caller, listen, I know you're calling us out. I appreciate that. You love the show. We appreciate that. Keep the calls coming. We'll have the answers for you right on the spot. So, Heated Hotline was presented by Special Sauce Podcast. What's your special sauce? SpecialSaucePodcast.com. Hey, when we come back, you know what I say all the time. Buckle up. Catone's Comments is next.
Special Sauce Podcast. You lacking the sauce? The sauce is good, man.
Some startups, finance, Kratos Custom Delivery.
With your host, Marcus Arias. Tune in to Special Sauce Podcast, wherever you podcast. What's your special sauce? Time for Catone's Comments!
So this week, obviously the NBA finals have started and Denver's playing Miami. And, leading up to that game, I was listening to the local media around here talking. And there was actually people in our local media who said, well, I'd rather have Tatum and Brown than Jokic and Murray. I think Tatum and Brown are better. Listen. And then they bring up the fact that, the Celtics are really probably the most talented team in the NBA. Listen to me. I can't take it anymore. I'm going to be real because this is the real deal New England feel. Okay. Stop being delusional. Stop. I don't know what you're drinking, what you're smoking. I don't know what it is. Listen to me. Jokic is a 2-time MVP. Finished second this year. Should have probably won it. Should have three-peated in the MVP voting. Last time I checked, Tatum and Brown have nothing. Zero. Zilch. Zero. Goose egg. They got nothing. Neither one of them have ever won an MVP. Okay? Never even finished in the top 2 of the MVP voting. Neither one of them. So please get that out of your head. They're not better than Jokic. Murray, if people think Jaylen Brown is better than Murray when Murray's healthy and he is healthy, I know he struggled a little bit in game 2 of the finals. Come on. There is no way Jaylen Brown is better than Murray. Never mind the combination of the two. And the other thing is, if you truly know anything about basketball, obviously these reporters, they just throw stuff out there to get a reaction. If you know anything about basketball, it's how these players complement each other. Jokic and Murray complement each other perfectly. Not like Brown and Tatum. Brown and Tatum, how many years are we going to watch this fiasco where they don't complement each other? They're not the right mix. And I hate to say this, I'm going to agree with Mr. Corso. You're never going to win a championship with those two guys together. Chris has taken me over to his thinking. He's won me over. I agree with him. Now, as far as having the most talented team in the league, listen to me. Please listen to me. Okay. You want to say Jason Tatum is an all-NBA player? Yes, he is. I'll give him that. I'm not saying he's one of the top 5 guys in the league because I don't think he is, but he's an all-NBA player. He's going to get a Supermax contract. Okay, fine. I'll give you that with Tatum. Jaylen Brown, he proved to you that he's not in that category. He's proven that to you, okay? So I don't want to hear that. Now, Marcus Smart, if you look at the statistics, he was at the bottom, next to last in point guard statistics on the season. Derek White, next to last in point guard statistics on the season. Horford was dead last in overall statistics for guys that play his position. Last in the NBA. Last. Okay, so where do they have more talent than the rest of the league? We're delusional. Yes, they made the finals last year, and they lost to a better team. Golden State was a better team. I don't want to hear the excuses. Everybody, even Chris had excuses on why. No, the Celtics lost to a better team with an elite superstar that we don't have. Okay, that's who they lost to. Golden State was better, without question. Okay, I don't want to hear the bullshit about why the Celtics lost. No, they lost to a better team. Okay. Also last year, and I stand by my comment, they wouldn't have beat Milwaukee if Chris Middleton played. They went 7 games, and Middleton didn't play a minute in the series. Milwaukee beats the Celtics last year if Middleton plays, and I stand by that. They wouldn't have got by Milwaukee. Absolutely not. So I don't want to hear it. I'm sick of listening and building up this team into what are they? They haven't won anything. They've won nothing. They can't win when the money's on the line. They can't win. Oh, okay. You win a game 7 here. You win a game 7 in the semis. Oh yeah, you beat Milwaukee last year in a game 7. They didn't have one of their best players. You went to Golden State, you got your ass kicked. This year, you go down 3-0 to Miami. You make a run, get to a game 7, and what do? You tank. You tank. Okay? Tatum gets hurt in that game, and nobody else can step up. Brogdon should be in the starting lineup. Mazzulla's a cartoon character. I'm going to throw him in the same category as the coach for Tampa Bay, Arians. He's with Arians. Okay? He's with Arians. That's where he is. He's with Arians. Okay? So I've just had enough with the Celtics. And the last comment I'll make about all of this, okay, is Jaylen Brown played this year 38% of his minutes as a 2 guard. The 2 guard. Jaylen Brown is a 2 guard. 38% of his minutes were playing the 2 guard. I understand the Celtics won in the regular season, but do you want to know why they can't win a championship? He has no business being your 2 guard and playing the 2 position for 38% of the time he's on the floor. That's a disgrace. A disgrace. Chris, what do you got to say about it? Because I know you're going to have something to say about it because you're one of those green teamers. You love to back everything about him. You were one of those people who defended him last year against Golden State, against me. Yes, you were. And now you do revisionist history this year. Oh, Curry, I knew they couldn't be a revisionist history. Go back and look at the tapes. What you said last year. You said Tatum was better than Curry.
Joe, why does he insist on beating the crap out of me? What did I do to him today? I shut up during Catone's comments today. I didn't say anything, you know.
I did the memo.
I think don't you think he stretches it just a little when he starts talking about this revisionist history? I mean, you make one comment and you know what? Just keep the Crayola crayons in mind in the back of your brain.
Here we go. He's going to go back to the Crayola crayons, Joe.
Mark, you're right though. Look, Joey's right. I mean, listen, it's funny because I was talking to Mark this week and he did some research, Joe. You know, he went in and he did his homework. He shopping the Crayolas and he went out there and he found some information. No, but he's right. I mean, you told me about the rankings of the guards that they have. And so you say, well, you're okay with Brogdon. You're okay with White. Well, those guys don't rank too high either.
But
in the league.
Chris,
now, some of them didn't play as many minutes, but
Chris, White shouldn't be playing point guard. He should be a combo guard. They're going to play in the wrong position.
Yeah, Brogdon. Listen, I'd be okay with it in Brogdon's hands. Okay,
I would.
but I'm with you, Mark. Listen. Last week talked DNA change. There's not going to be a change. I mean, they're going to give Jaylen Brown this kind of money. But I agree with you. I mean, look. The bottom line is they're not getting it done. I agree with you about the Milwaukee series with Middleton last year. That true. Could they have gotten by Milwaukee this year? I think probably.
This year, maybe not. But last year, no.
But the problem is, and it's always been to me, is taking out the dog that Tatum is not one. Okay. Can we all agree on that now? That can everybody out there agree on that? Email us, call us. He's not a dog. I mean, he's not He doesn't have that Jimmy Butler mentality. He just doesn't have it. So, okay. The problem is they don't complement one another. That's it. I mean, Brown and Tatum don't complement one another. So when one of them's, you say, well, okay, when one of them's down, the other one's got to pick it up. Well, Brown shows he can't do that either, clearly, when the chips are down, that he can't bring it. Don't talk to me about the regular season. I've given you my thoughts on the regular season, but so they don't complement each other. So what did they? I'm with you. There needs to be a change. To say nothing about what the hell are we supposed to do about Robert Williams? Because
I didn't even get to him, Chris.
I know he played. I mean, we won't, but he played 14 minutes in that game 7. So he's always hurt. I don't know what we do about that. Then you really got a problem. You're really on the ledge at that point. He can't become what you want him to be, and you're not going to develop his post game, his post play, which they should. And I don't understand why they don't. But getting back up to the top, yeah, he did play. And we talked about that when they were talking about the All NBA team and that he plays guard. Is he going to get it All NBA at guard? Well, there's too many guys ahead of him. So when you look at all the best players in the league and all these Supermax guys, Mark, you're right. Where do these guys rank? So what do you do? What do you do? Talking about Damian Lillard today, they're talking about Chris Paul, 38 years old.
Chris Paul would be a guy you would bring in. If they release him, you don't go to trade for him. You bring him in as a veteran point guard that actually is a point guard and tell him you distribute the ball and you become a leader on this team because we really don't have one.
Right.
And maybe that's what he's used for.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what he's used. But he's another guy, Chris, who's always hurt. Never plays a complete playoff. Every playoffs, he's knocked out of the playoffs. He's hurt.
Well, the only good thing about bringing a guy like that in is you don't need him. See, Phoenix needed him to be on the court all season long.
Yeah, we don't.
The Boston – hey, look what the Miami Heat are doing. They're the number 8 seed, and they had to do that play-in nonsense to get in, and they're in the NBA Finals. So, home court, the Heat beat the top 2 teams. So, home court doesn't mean anything.
And Chris, if we were to bring in a
and
guy
beat
like
Denver
Chris
in
Paul,
Denver.
Yeah. If we brought in a guy like Chris Paul, you bring up a great point, Chris. You could really manage his minutes because you don't need him on the court that much. You could really manage his minutes in the regular season to try to keep him fresh and healthy for the playoffs. And maybe a guy like that would be a good mix with what we have, Chris. I would still trade Brown and Smart. They're not going to. And I don't even know if I can get into Brad Stevens' comments because I may really go off the rails if I bring up what he said.
We got 7 minutes left. Do it.
So Stevens, Chris, this week, you tell me what you think of this statement. He says that, we just need to make a few tweaks. We're a really good team. I like our leadership. And we need to make a few additions, adjustments, but I like where we're at. I like where we're at. How do you make that comment, Chris? You like where we're at. So that tells you he's not making any moves. He's not getting rid of Brown. He's not getting rid of Smart. He likes where they are.
You remember in
and he sung Joe Mazzulo's praises.
Do you remember that movie Ace Ventura, Pet Detective?
Yeah.
When he says "Who, Zer," all right. That's the first thing that popped in my head when I heard Brad Stevens talking. Losers. That's how the losers talk. Denver's coach the other night, what did he do after the loss at home? He laid that team out on the carpet.
He said we didn't have any energy. We didn't have any effort. He laid them out. Laid them out on the court. Laid them out. Mazzulla would never say that, Chris. And neither did Stevens.
And that's his job, is to say that. Somebody's job is going to be to say that kind of stuff. Because, no, they're not one tweak away. They're not one thing away. They're not one this away. Mark just pointed out to you that these guys rank at the bottom of the league or middle to bottom in their positions. So you don't have the best players. You don't. You just don't have them. Okay? And you certainly don't have Marcus Smart. Listen, Marcus Smart was great to have around if he was going to be the all defensive player of the year thing. Okay? Well, he wasn't that this year. So what the hell is stopping you from putting him together with something else and going to get a guy like Damian Lillard? I mean, what the hell is stopping you from going to get a guy that can facilitate that when Tatum goes in the toilet like he does, can take over a game, can find his own shot, can get to the spot on the floor that he needs to get to, can dish, can beat a double team, can do, you know what I mean?
No, I totally agree with you, Chris. And the other piece of it is, so Marcus Smart, of all the players in the team, Chris, regressed the most without Udoka. He regressed the most without Udoka. He really did, right? And especially defensively. So now they bring in Sam Cassell, Chris. Is that going to bring Marcus Smart back to being Defensive Player of the Year? I don't know.
I'm glad you brought that up, Mark. Whose move do you think that was? First of all, let me just say I like the hire. I like the hire because he brings some things to the team that you need. I mean, he comes to the team with leadership. He's familiar with the city. He's been there before. He has championships. He was a player. Players will gravitate to him. All of those good things. And he's a good basketball guy. He knows what he's doing. Yep. But first question is, who brought him in? And all the nonsense I heard all week about he checks every box. He checks every box. We're going to get to this in the next segment about the media in this city, about the homers. And Mark and I have been on. Now I'm starting to hear Felger talk about it, but you and I have been on this for years, how they're in the pocket.
So I'm not going to talk. I'll wait until that segment to talk about check every box. I won't give you my comment on that just yet.
Check. He's 14 years. He hasn't been. He's been coaching for 14 years. Why isn't he a head coach, Mark? If he checks every box.
That was going to be my point, Chris. But
sorry,
we'll get into that. So Chris, this had to be a Stevens move. Why would Missoula bring in a guy that checks every box to be a? Why? So the players can turn to him instead of the head coach. You have to think that was a Stevens move, is my guess, thinking you need some stability on the bench that the players respect. Because when Al Horford is in the middle of your huddle with the coaching you, and Missoula is in the background until about 30 seconds left in the timeout, and then he jumps in the huddle, that's a problem. And you're not going to tell me that Stevens didn't see it. So
do you think it could have been an older move?
If someone's going to be in the middle of the huddle and it's not Missoula, well, then at least it'll be a coach. At least it could be Cassell.
Could that have been a Wick move?
Yeah, could have been. Could have been a Wick move. Could have been. Listen, you know what, Chris? Now that you say that, I think it was a Wick move because I think Stevens is happy with Missoula. That was a Wick move. Wick probably said either you get a veteran that can help him coach or get rid of him. One or the other.
My grandmother used to tell me, it's okay to build castles in the sky, but when you start living in them, that's a problem. Okay. And Brad Stevens is building castles in the sky, and it starts with Marcus Smart. And now it's trickling through to everybody else. Joe Mazzulla was a huge problem this season. So this move, I mean, is this the next head coach then? Because I can't imagine with Mazzulla's type of attitude that he's not going to be looking over his shoulder and have all kinds of attitude, especially if he wasn't part of this.
Cassell could be a head coach in waiting over here, maybe. I'm going to just bring this up.
Or is he just there to be the bad cop, Cassell? Is he the bad cop?
Well, someone's going to be the bad cop because it's certainly not Missoula, so maybe it will be Cassell. I am going to say this, Chris, before we switch topics. You had a great, insightful thought and comment last week. We were talking after they lost. Chris,
Joe, mark the date and time. He said,
mark the date and time because this doesn't happen too often, Joe. Chris said, I don't care how much money it'll cost you. Spend it, whatever it takes to get him. Fly out and meet with Kevin Garnett immediately and say, listen, I want you to come coach this team. They got no heart. They got no attitude. They got everything that you had as a player, they don't have. I need you to come coach this team and give them what you know can do. And if you want to bring in one of your boys as the assistant, I don't care. Bring one of them in with you. But I need you to be our head coach. What will it take to get you here? How much money will it take? And if you went in there with that approach, he probably would have said, yeah, I'll come. And Chris, that was Chris's thing. Go get Garnett.
Yeah, the Deion Sanders approach. Mark, because Kevin Garnett could care less. He doesn't care with Tatum. Hey, you know what, kids? Sit down, shut up, okay? Grow a set and freaking get out on the court and win this damn game for us. There's no way he would have allowed all of what you saw to happen. So we'll see if Sam Cassell is the savior of this whole thing and he's going to come in and be the bad cop. But you're right, Mark. I don't see them make any other moves. I don't see them doing anything, and they are ranking at the bottom of some of these positions and some guys that do all the same stuff. So, more to come. We'll see what happens. Good stuff, Mark. Catone's comments was presented by Corso Law Group, Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. CorsoLawGroup.com. Allow us to be your voice. Hey, when we come back, Yankees versus Red Sox and more.
It's that time again for a timeout for a message from one of our sponsors. No one ever thinks they will be in the need of a criminal or traffic lawyer, but things happen. Corso Law Group is Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Their 20-plus years experience and attention to detail has helped thousands of people all across this great country who found themselves in a situation in Arizona. So whether it's a traffic ticket or if you need reduced DUI or more serious issues, call or go online to CorsoLawGroup.com and talk with these expert attorneys who I know will help you. Corso Law Group.
Back in with more Corso and Catone, the real deal New England feel. Hey, listen, it's people may forget that it's going on, but it is baseball season, and we have some Yankees and Red Sox talk. Joe, let's have it. So, Mark, they're getting close. They're getting close to the halfway point. What are they, about 60 games in right now? Something like that, roughly. So
Yeah, about 60.
Right. So who do you want to talk about first? You want to get the Yankees out of the way? Because there's a lot to talk about with the Red Sox.
Let's do the Yankees first, because then I want to talk about, Chris, I want to talk a little bit before we transition to the Red Sox. Listen, I did my research this week, Chris. A lot of research this week, right?
So shopping those Crayolas, Joe.
Oh, I was shopping up. After we talk about the Yankees, I want to give you a little bit of statistical stuff from the league itself, because I think it really relates to where the Red Sox are at this point. So, anyways, let's talk about the Yankees first, Chris.
Yeah.
So, Aaron Judge hurt again. Did you see how he got hurt this weekend, Chris?
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw it.
I did.
All right. He makes a great catch in Dodger Stadium, but he busts through the wall, the gate of the wall, and right field opens up, and he hurts his big toe. Listen, I love Aaron Judge. I love him.
We have a lawsuit pending now on behalf of Aaron Judge for the LA Dodgers now over there.
Listen, Chris, if the Yankees could just get damn healthy in the pitching staff, I think they'd be okay. Listen, I still don't think they have the roster to win a championship, Chris, because it's the same old roster. However, Judge is on pace to hit 55 home runs again, 55 home runs. He's on pace. If you look at what he's been doing the last month, and now he's going to be out for a little bit, about a week, but he's on pace to hit 55 home runs. I think he's justified the money they gave him, right?
Yeah.
I think the young kid shows, Volpe, the shortstop, shows sparks of he can be really good. He's young. He's 20 years old. I think the kid's going to be a player. But they still struggle, Chris, to put together. If they're not hitting the 2 and 3 run homer, it's the same old Yankees, Chris. They can't figure out a way to score runs, and their pitching staff, again, is injured again, Chris, like it always is. Now Cortez is on the injured reserve. I mean, they just can't seem to keep their pitching staff healthy. It's year after year after year.
And with these home runs, and they get the big knocks, but because they struggle so much to get base runners, because they struggle so much with small ball, these are not 3-run home runs. They're single shots. They're maybe, a 2-run homer. And when you're getting them. Look, last year I downed a little bit the saying, hey, I don't want to spend that kind of money on Aaron Judge. I just don't want to do it because the results aren't there in the playoffs. Then I thought about it and I said, okay, I mean, they're going to spend the money. They're going to give it to him, and they got it. Do it. You're the Yankees, spend the money.
Yeah.
But I thought about it and I said, that's not the problem. He's not the problem. You want that guy in the lineup where he hits. You want 2 more You want a Manny and an Ortiz. I mean, you want that 2 or 3 guys in that lineup.
Yeah.
That's not the problem. The problem is the rest of also what's surrounding that. I mean, you're trying Donaldson and guys like this that just you're trying to put murderer's row up and down the lineup, and it just doesn't work that way anymore, right?
No, it doesn't. And I will say this, Chris. The Yankees, I believe, now you're going to think I'm nuts. If Judge can stay healthy, I know that. If Judge can stay healthy, Chris, over the next 2 to 3 years, the Yankees have such an influx of young hitters in the AA and single A, Chris. Within 2 to 3 years, they're going to have 2 or 3 guys, Chris, that can really get up there and do things to really complement Judge. It's just a matter if Judge can keep himself healthy enough and long enough to actually play with to actually be who Aaron Judge is when these young guys are ready. And I think they may have at least one come up next year, and the following year they'll have the rest of them. So within the next 2 years, they're going to get an influx, Chris, of what we're talking about. Guys that can hit for power, steal bases, do different things. They're coming. I think that's what Cashman's thinking is, but I don't think Cashman wants to say that because now you're acting like one of these small market teams where we're going to wait for the young guys to get here, right? Rather than spending money. Yeah, rather than spending money and winning now. So he put together guys like Donaldson and all these other guys. But so you're going to have to wait, I guess. I don't know, Chris. They're not going to win a World Series this year, Chris. I'll be shocked if they win a World Series the way this roster is constructed and with all the injuries they got in the pitching staff. I mean, you went and spent all that money on Rodon. He hasn't pitched an inning. I mean, he looks like he'll be out until July or August, for crying out loud. You went and spent, what, $160 million on him?
So, and so you wanted to, before we get into the Red Sox, you said you had something.
Yeah, and I will say this to close out the Yankees, Chris. They'll make the playoffs. I don't know if they'll win the division. There'll be a wild card. But like I said, Chris, you look around the American League, they still aren't going to beat a team like Houston in a 7-game series. It's not going to happen. So, anyways, one of the things, Chris, that we're going to talk about the Red Sox, right? So if you look around the league.
Whoa, hang on a second. I got something for the Red Sox. You want to talk about them? Hang on.
What does he got? What's the Ringling Brothers at bottom of the Daily Circus?
That's perfect. That's a
game now.
Joe. You know? So we talk about
it's a perfect segue, you know, but go ahead, finish your thought.
Oh, it's Joe, that was great. So we talk about the Red Sox, right? So when we look at the league, Chris, right? In 2022, Chris, there was a record amount of spending in free agency in 2022. Coming out of COVID, some teams spent money for what, right? Even though there was a decline in revenue, teams last year finally spent some money in the offseason, and approximately $226 million. And listen to the disparity, Chris. In 2022, the payroll, $226 million separated the Dodgers and the Orioles. So the Dodgers spent $226 million more on players than the Orioles did in 2022. This year, Chris, the Mets have spent $229 million more than Oakland. So the disparity is getting even bigger between the big market teams and the smaller market teams, right? But the A's, Chris, are not the only team like that. There are 3 teams whose payroll, other than the A's, so it makes 4 total, their payroll is under $100 million. Think about that, Chris. For a roster of 27 guys, 20, right? Yeah. Your payroll's under $100 million in 2023.
In this day and age.
In this day and age. Now, the Mets are one of 14 teams, Chris, who have a payroll of over $200 million. Okay, only the Mets. Mets are over $300 million, but half the league is over $200 million. Okay,
so
the only small market teams, Chris, that have won anything since about 2010 have been Kansas City and Tampa. Okay, but the small market teams, they can still win, Chris, but it's getting extremely more difficult, right? Now, Major League Baseball came up with this compensation committee, which is a farce. They ain't doing nothing to fix that problem. Okay. The last thing, Chris, is the Red Sox payroll this year. What do you think it is?
I mean, I knew it was just getting somewhere. Go.
Right? Well, I wanted to lay the foundation of the league first, Chris. Right? So the Red Sox payroll, Chris, is $163 million. If you take out Devers, who's making between 17 and 20 with incentives, they're down to like 143. So they're getting closer, Chris. They're at the top end of like a small market team. They're getting like a small market team. Next year, Devers is going to make $31 million. So of that 163, now you're in the 130s, Chris, outside of that one player. So what have the Red Sox become? Is that who the Red Sox are? They're a small market team?
Joe, play it again. Please, play it again. Play it again. Listen. Mark, look, they're a joke. This team is a joke. I heard it all week. They're a Mickey Mouse operation, period. And in so many other ways than just on the field, too.
Yeah.
They
don't have a major, they got guys playing positions, Chris. They're not even major league players.
I heard this week that they're talking about the food and, the food that's in the clubhouse, the food that's for the media and the players and this, and everything's downgraded. Everything's like less than this year. It's just everything's going down. I mean, talking about, we'll get to the broadcast in a second, but like the NESN broadcast, another joke, and that's owned by them too. And, they're so hell-bent on getting the commercial money. Commercials go, they get to break late. Commercials go, and you're missing pitches. You're coming back into the game, and the play has already begun. The whole organization is Mickey Mouse, and the manager, Cora, is fed up. He's fed up. You heard him.
Well, you heard his comments this week, Chris. He made a comment about, we are what we are. You see what's on the field. Like, in other words, almost saying I'm working. He said, I'm working with the talent I have. That's a dig to Bloom, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's a dig to John Henry. That's a dig to ownership too, obviously, right? John Henry's checked out on this organization, and I know I kind of gave a winded intro, but I just wanted to put everything.
No, it's poignant. It makes sense. Because it's shocking. Because it's shocking, because Boston shouldn't be that. Listen, you allowed, and it's the effort too. They allowed a little league home run this week. If that ball hit past the second baseman,
that's a disgrace.
Center fielder stood there. Yeah. He didn't move. The right fielder comes in, throws the ball, gets it to the catcher. The catcher throws it past the second baseman to get the guy, and that's the Ringling Brothers, and that's what Joe is playing right now. And meanwhile, it's a little league home run. It's embarrassing. Cora's embarrassed. He's a better manager than this. I don't know what he's still doing here. They don't need that guy. I mean,
I don't think, Chris, when he decided to come back, he thought this was what he was walking back into. So it's going to be interesting to see how this season plays out. Sale's injured again.
Sale's hurt
he's always
again.
Injured, right?
I mean,
so they got problems, Chris. And listen, they got, like I said, Chris, they got guys on the field who want major league players. They shouldn't even be out there, but they're out there. So.
And I'm listening to people this week talk about, well, they can trade for some pitching and trade for You're not going to waste anything in your house if you have anything.
Not wasting anything.
If you have anything in your system, you're not going to trade anything. You have no chance. I mean, look, Mark, you and I said it. They're a 500 team. They'll go somewhere between 80 and 85 wins. I mean, that's where they're going to be. I mean,
that's where they're going to be
last night, and they'll have those kinds of games, but that's where they're going to be. But they're a joke, Mark. And what's also a joke, and I just brought it up quickly, was the broadcasting, the media for this city. And and I say this city, it's probably this way a lot of places, but this is a sports city. I mean, these people that are passionate, you people, that's why we're here doing this, because you're passionate about it. And so are we. Mark, what's happened? We've talked about Curran becoming a homer now.
He has. And he never used to be.
No, even guys like Bedard. The only guy that I hear, and he was talking about this particular thing, which has made me think about it, was Felger this week. NESN is owned by the Red Sox. NBC Boston is owned by the Celtics, and you can tell. when guys like Forsberg say he checks every box.
Like you said, Chris, if he checked every box, he'd be a head coach in the league. After 15 years, he don't check every goddamn box, please.
I'm listening to the broadcast.
Forsberg, Chris, I think might have been the guy who said that Tatum and Brown are a better combination than Jokic and Murray. They're more talented. Okay. Are you sick?
Yeah. You should be fired today for saying crap like that. I mean, that's absurd. I'm listening to the Nesson broadcast. It's unwatchable. Okay, Youkilis, this clown. I mean, shit. The comment, the color, the play-by-play.
Chris, is the guy still on there from the
he
flagship?
He got
they
fired.
got rid of him, right?
Yeah,
Maz. They got rid of Maz.
But look, I don't know if he got fired, but he's not there anymore. The Youkilis is trying to he's talking about Diaz, who hit that little league home run. Who talking about that was a real good piece of hitting. Completely trying to focus something somewhere else. And the play-by-play guy kept trying to bring him back and say this is a circus. This is ridiculous. This is and Youkilis just kept wanting to toe the company line.
Chris, if you
notice, the Bruins broadcast is the same.
If you notice, Chris, NBC Sports Boston, the Celtics own, you don't see, and I know he does a lot of work for ESPN now, but you don't see Kendrick Perkins on much anymore because he used to tell you how it was. They right? And I'm wondering if Eddie House is going to get himself thrown out of there because Eddie House has been a little bit critical, and I don't know if they like that. Where
he's the only reason I can watch it.
Well, I'm interested to see, Chris, if Eddie House is back next year.
Because Scalabrine is starting to skate towards the company line now, too. Now that he's got his broadcast responsibility on the court, taking over for Heinsohn.
So I'm wondering, Chris, if House is part of that team next year.
We'll see, but it's getting bad out there. That's why you got to listen to us. That's why you got to come here, because we're the real deal.
Chris, I am going to say, you brought up Bedard. I am going to make this one comment. Everyone was singing the praises of Thornton, Tyquan Thornton, at the OTA the other day, right? They were saying how, he looked so good. He was running, but whatever he was doing. And Bedard said, listen, it was in shorts and T-shirts, half speed. He got by Miles Bryant. He went by Miles Bryant on one play, looked good. But the fact that he said Miles Bryant, Bedard was almost saying
that was it.
He beat a slug. He didn't do anything spectacular. They're in shorts and T-shirts, which is what you always say, Chris. They're in shorts and T-shirts and there's no contact. I don't want to hear about anything about anybody right now, like Tyquan Thornton, until they put the pads on. So, but again, that's the local media, Chris, trying to make it look like, he's going to be, he's going to be Jamar Chase this year. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Dom DeLuise and Cannonball Run just ran by Miles Bryant, too, for a touchdown. So we'll see what happens. Hey, wanted to get to that PGA Live Golf Tournament, what happened today, but we can talk a little bit about that next week. We'll get to that. Yeah. So good stuff, gentlemen. Corso and Catone was presented by Special Sauce Podcast. What's your special sauce? Hey, get on, listen, watch. All our shows are up. Email us. Give us a call in Heated Hotline and come back next week, 7 p.m. Eastern. Hey, we're going to talk about the Patriots and some of the guys on this team that need to pop. Who needs to pop and who needs to go? We're going to talk about that next week. Catone's comments, your calls, anything you bring to the table, we will be ready. We are Corso and Catone, the real deal, New England feel. See you next Saturday.
Find Corso and Catone on iHeartRadio, iTunes, or wherever you podcast. And subscribe to the YouTube channel, Corso and Catone, and catch the chaos at 7 p.m. on Saturday.